So welcome to Satsang. As you know, if you have any questions, you're welcome to pose your questions by speaking them or by writing your question in the chat box. And if you're watching on YouTube, also you can write a brief question in the chat box on the YouTube channel, and I'll be able to respond to that. So maybe we can take this opportunity to rest as being. It's so lovely to be defenseless without any need to do anything, to defend any position, to prop one's self-image, to argue about the world, about others. To be empty, rested, restful, resting as oneself. The true self that has no image, no name, no issues, no shape. The qualities of peace, happiness, bliss, freedom, joy. The open heart, the heart of being. We spend too much time dealing with problems, imagining some future events, hoping for something to be this way or that way. Thinking so much about ourselves, but not happy, not in a happy way. Judging oneself. Thinking that things should be different and feeling that things should be different. And working so hard, spinning and spinning to make things different, make things in a certain way. Or it's okay if it was happy, right? Why not? You could try so hard to do so many things any way you want, but if you're happy. But when Your happiness depends on some outcome. And if the outcome doesn't manifest the way you wish it, which is often the case, then the disappointment, the regret, the blame, the new resolutions, the images we have of ourselves and of others. So limiting, so constraining, so unhappy. We try really hard to prop up these images to make them look good. But it doesn't work, does it? Because all along, you're mistaking yourself to be somebody, you see. And you feel and you believe that if you're not somebody, then the boogeyman is gonna come and get you. You feel like you have to be somebody good, somebody great, somebody whatever. So many versions, and it keeps changing. And it saps all your energy, just thinking about yourself. But it's just the imagined self that you imagine yourself to be. We inherit that in a way. We've all inherited a package of identity. Be like this, don't be like that. Act like this, don't act like that. Always referring to me as a person, me as this body, mind, some body with a name and an age and a form. But is that what you are? Are you the past? Are you something that you perceive, something that you feel? Is that what you are? Ask yourself, what am I? What am I? What am I truly? What is the reality of the I? What is I? What is I? Not I, somebody. The erroneous form that appears and disappears keeps changing, keeps shifting. And we feel so hard that that's what we are. We are these shifting forms, these shifting feelings. Are we? You can look right now. You look right now. There is no story in the immediacy of now. Because in the immediacy of now, there is no time. There is no later, no hope, no plan, no image trying to be like this or trying to be like that. You can play this game if you are happy. But you cannot be happy if you believe that you are subject to the game. You have to find your freedom first. Realize your freedom, your innate freedom, your borderless presence, that which truly perceives right now. Not anything that is perceived, you see. Because whatever is perceived refers to that which perceives, which is not perceived, right? The I is not perceived. World, body, mind is perceived. Trees, forests, feelings, sensations, thoughts. are perceived. But what about I? The I that perceives, you see? The I that perceives. Can you deny the I that perceives? You cannot deny it, but you cannot find it as a form. You cannot find it as something, because it is not a thing. It is the wonder of being, the magical wonder of being. Oh. So to enjoy yourself, to enjoy your life, to enjoy your friends, to come to the joy, you have to first free yourself from the ignorance, free yourself from the sense of limitation. It's an add-on, it's not necessary. You can celebrate being, celebrate world, body, mind without identity, without mistaking yourself to be a form, to be a mortal object. Bodies born and die. You do not. So invite yourself, invite the entire self to this relaxation, to resting as being, and to the revelation, the realization that I is awareness. And this awareness belongs to no one, has no owner, has no beginning, no ending, has no shape, is non-phenomenal, and yet it is the undeniable self. Contemplate the self. Contemplate, what am I truly? During the day, during the night. So that you come to the transparency, you see the layers and layers, the veils of materialism, of the dense form can dissolve in the reality of the self that is formless. So if you have any questions, Any questions?
Magdi?
Hello, Zoe.
Hi. Well, I was so blown away by Sunday's satsang. I just wanted to share something that happened. I was re-listening to it that evening, as I was going to sleep, and it's, I guess, as the I or the me feeling dissolves back into the source. It's almost like it catches the spark of what you're saying and it hits completely. And you were talking about all the conversation you had about you need to look closely. You're 24/7. All you're doing is perceiving your perception. You're never perceiving anything but your perception. And the perceiver is perceiving itself as a perception. And when I went to, the next day was, it was just like a deeper, like a feeling realization of that there's nothing but myself. And with that came this um like dropping of judgment. Like I wasn't trying to drop judgment. It was like this, it unhooked. and there was just much more like a feeling of love, I guess is the only way to put it. And yeah, um I keep contemplating that the perceiver is perceive the perceiver is perceiving itself as a perception. Everything is, it just yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's very nice of you.
Yeah. Yeah, and today I was speaking with one of my students and just seeing the conditioning, these sensations that come up and imagining them to be outside. Uh, and there's nothing outside.
Right.
Anyway, thank you.
Yes. It's very intimate, let's say. It's the intimacy of one. And that's what we know as love, intimacy of one. That's what we know as beauty. As peace, happiness. It's the intimacy of one. Which is even, that's already saying too much.
Mm.
The belief in being immortal body, mind, is separate self, and the feeling that, that I am something, me feeling, cannot sustain itself in the light of contemplation and the contemplation of the Dharma, teaching the contemplation of truth. It cannot sustain itself. Like when you start to turn the dimmer light back on, then that thief that you thought was crouched outside in your yard, slowly you start to perceive that it's a bush.
Mm.
But as the light is turned on, then inevitably the darkness is slowly, gently fading, revealing truth truth is self-evident. Self-evident in that it's evident to the self. And whatever is evident to the self merges in the self. In a way, you could say it becomes the self, or it is revealed to be the self. So the self is revealed to itself, and it can only reveal itself to itself, from within itself. As the mistaken perceptions start to fall away, what remains is the innate clarity of being, the innate clarity of awareness. It is what I am. It is the I, the amness, this innate clarity. And the contemplation is, what is this I? That reveals that I is the I and all is the I. There is just the I, but the I. And the sense of separation and the belief in multiplicity can no longer stand in the face of this understanding. There may be some hiccups, but the contemplation becomes stronger and stronger, more and more passionate for us.
Mm.
And of course, there is the world, body, mind, not a problem. Whatever it takes, whichever form it appears as, not a problem. Like in your night dreams, not a problem. The only unhappiness in the night dream and in the waking dream is when that lion is running after you and you're running away towards the closest tree. Metaphorically speaking, this sense of something at risk, something at stake. There is a sense of danger. For whom?
Mm.
For what I imagine myself to be. Because when I'm not imagining myself to be anything, which is possible, then to whom does the danger refer? Right?
Yes. Yes. It's almost like the thoughts become more translucent or something. Like before they would be bam and now like, oh, there's one, but it's like more like a cloud.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's like you're dreaming, but you know now that it's so
Yes.
interesting appearance. Wow, look at what it's doing. It's your dream. There's no other dreamer. Dream only refers to the reality that dreams it. Because a dream does not refer to another dream. It refers to the reality of the dreamer. Everything that appears to you refers to presence, awareness, right?
Yes.
And awareness refers to itself. It's not an object. It does not appear as any form. And this awareness is I. Knowing yourself. Know yourself. This is the high teaching. Know yourself, your true self, not your imaginary self, not the story, not the history, her story. Know yourself. Knowing yourself is knowing presence, being presence, knowing being presence. I am this borderless, aware presence. There are no words to be spoken about it. It's a silent knowing. But we speak figuratively about something which is beyond any words. That's the speaker. It is that which speaks, the creator of all forms of the vibration that we refer to as language.
Yeah, amazing.
Hola Maria. You say, Hi Magdi, in contemplating the truth, we are pointed to explore our experience. My experience is through the objects, what I perceive, feel, and think. Then I ask, who is it that is experiencing? And that is the contemplation, question mark. There is a sense of subject-object, almost like a split personality, the observer and the observed. What is the observer in your experience, Maria? When you look, you are observing right now. What is it that observes? And can you go to the sense of that, the feel of that? Can you go to that which observes? Not just the image or the mental aspect of what observes, but the feel of it. Where do you go? What does it look like? The observer. What does the observer feel like? What does the observer? What's its fabric? What is it like to you? Can you go to the observer without thought? Experience, know, feel the observer without thought. Because it is yourself, you see, the observer is yourself. But without thought, go without thought to yourself. Without any future or past or name or gender or age or just no yesterday, no tomorrow, just right now. Go to that which you are. Sense of it, feel of it. Has no form, right? There's nothing that can be said about it. Just it's like diving deeper and deeper, going broader and broader into I don't know what. You could say the mystery of being, you could say the self, you could say the reality of being, you could say the I, you could say the observer. See, we have ideas about the observer. We have so many notions. But when you go wholeheartedly and totally to the observer, to the feel, to the sense of it, to the truth of it, to the reality of it, to the beingness of it, you can't go with your mind, go with your entirety, with your totality, with your globality. You will find just a borderless awareness. See? And this borderless awareness is everything. What you're perceiving right now is what this borderless awareness is perceiving, is at zero distance of the awareness, the borderless awareness. What we refer to as the observed is not split from the reality that observes it. Turn your attention to a certain energetic, just a gentle energetic movement or feeling or sensation behind your eyes. Maybe a couple of inches behind your skull, behind this point. So this sensation and what senses this sensation, are they split? Turn your attention to your breath, your chest, and just slightly within your chest, the feeling, the sensation within your chest. Gentle movement, slightly ticklish sensation. Is this sensation and the awareness of it, are they split? Are they two? Which is which? Turn your attention to your general sense of being. You can refer to it as the body or being, or that very gentle vibration, overall sensation of the body, whichever way it's appearing to you. Is the awareness of it, of that sensation, split from the sensation itself? Where is the split line? Where is the the dividing line, the dividing surface between experiencer and experienced. You need to look at that, Maria, see? Because when you don't look at that, there is the default concept and the default belief and the default feeling that the observer and the observed are split. When you're not looking at that, when you're not closely contemplating that, you will experience what you were talking about, that there is almost a split personality between the observer and the observed. So turn your attention over and over to this question, to this feeling of being split. Contemplate. Does the feeling of being split actually validate that there is a split? Or does it just validate that there is a feeling, meaning awareness taking on the form of a feeling? It's a good question. Also, when the feeling of being split arises, where is that feeling? Is it out there somewhere? Or it is intimate with the awareness that is aware of it? 100%, 1,000% intimate. So intimate that you cannot distinguish between the feeling of being split and the awareness of that. So there is an intimacy, always the intimacy of the so-called subject with the so-called object. Like the intimacy of your fingers with your hand, or your hand with your wrist with your arm. There is an intimacy. And the sense of separation is a result of imitation of the wrong paradigm that I is a woman or a man, while I is neither a woman nor a man. I is transparent presence. I is pure awareness presence. So that mistaken paradigm affects your entire perception and your feeling state. Notice that everything you experience intimately within yourself. There is nothing outside of yourself. We never experience anything outside of ourselves. Never. Remember Francis speaking that Jean Klein used to say that separation, that in the entire universe there is nothing that is separate. And there never has been and never will be. How can you separate truth? How can you separate reality? We play the game of separation, you see, which is okay as long as you are happy. But first, you have to know your happiness. Otherwise, you cannot fake it, you see. You try to fake it, but it doesn't work. And everybody's trying. 7 billion of us are faking their happiness. I mean, they don't know it. They believe that they're sincerely following their happiness, but no. You cannot come onto happiness without contemplating the self, the wholeness of being. I'm going to take this opportunity to reply to your question, Richard, that you sent me via email. You say, hi, Magdi. About spiritual progress, is there such a thing? No. And yes. Because that would imply a someone who is getting better, suffering less, feeling more peaceful. Progress involves time. At the relative level, it seems to be true. Sometimes being more aware of suffering seems to make it feel more acute. If progress is an illusion, then the mind keeps waiting for a future moment where and when it will be knowingly peaceful. In the notion of a spiritual journey, the ego finds the perfect medium through which to indefinitely sustain itself. Yes, sometimes that's the case. Well, Richard, about spiritual progress, yes and no. You ask, is there such a thing? In the absolute sense, ultimately, all is well. So, who is progressing since, after all, the personal self is like Santa Claus, is a dream character. The dream character cannot improve. It's being dreamt. Now, on the less absolute level, when we are contemplating, what am I? What is the reality of my experience? Am I a mortal form? Am I born? What is it that dies? What is it that does not die? When we contemplating these questions, this contemplation is taking place in the dream. Because consciousness doesn't contemplate. It is contemplating itself. It is contemplation itself. It does not contemplate. It is meditation itself. Consciousness is meditation, but it does not meditate. So, what is it that is posing these questions? These questions are being posed in the dream. Of course, via consciousness, because there is nothing that's occurring without consciousness. Everything that is occurring is consciousness taking on this form, because there's only one reality. And if we're speaking about anything occurring, it has an aspect of reality. Even though if it's a dream, there is an aspect of reality to the dream because it's not nothing. The dreamer is dreaming this dream. So we're dreaming the dream, or you say consciousness is dreaming the dream of being somebody who is contemplating, what am I truly? There is no need to try to write a thesis about it. We just need to recognize that as a personal self, as a mortal body-mind, there is unhappiness. And what we are speaking about is awakening from that impression, awakening from that belief, and realizing the happiness that is. So some people speak about this happiness, and they refer to the end of the dream, to awakening from the dream. So there is such a thing as awakening from the dream. You can call it spiritual progress. I wouldn't use this term. I would say that because spiritual progress refers to like almost an athlete, you know, that I'm, as a personal self, I'm becoming a better spiritual athlete. I would say that in the contemplation of the self, the veils of ignorance thin out. You could call it spiritual progress, but I wouldn't use these terms. I would just say that that's the case, that the unhappiness diminishes, and of course the happiness increases. So the balance is unhappiness goes down and happiness goes up. Yes, there is actually no one who is feeling better or feeling worse. That's just a thought. It's just a mind impression. So happiness does not refer to I am happy. You could say that ultimately one can arrive to say I am happiness. But if you are happy, you know, that's still in time and space. You're happy now, but maybe you'll be unhappy later. Except if you are happy across the board, then you can say I am happy. So I often say, well, I'm happy. That it's not a big deal, because it's a natural state. It's being happy, like you're awake. So you don't go around saying I'm awake, I'm awake. It's just you're awake. Okay. Somebody asks you, are you awake? Yeah, oh yeah, I'm awake. But you're not thinking about it all day, right? So there is no one who's really happy or unhappy. The happiness is more the solution of the sense of being someone. You know, this sense of limitation, this sense of being somebody is a limitation. So happiness is this becomes more and more this body with tight entity becomes more and more fuzzy. You say sometimes being more aware of suffering seems to make it feel more acute. Aware of suffering. You know, suffering refers to somebody. Suffering is resistance and seeking, being unhappy with what is and wanting what is not. And it's good to be aware of that, be aware of the process. I don't know if it make it more acute. It's good to be aware of what suffering means, what is the mechanism of it. So you can see your way through it. It's in the notion of a spiritual journey, the ego finds a perfect medium through which to indefinitely sustain itself. Yeah, that could be part of the path. Sometimes we have an image of being spiritual. And of course, that's ego, meaning that's still the personal self. Hopefully, we don't stay there for too long. I remember thinking, in my case, it lasted a few years, I have to admit. So I can speak about it sometimes. They refer to it in Zen tradition as the stink of enlightenment. So we have to be really careful, not that we're not developing another persona, you see, because then there is a new identity, and then we are spinning in the feeling and in the mentation. It's very subtle, but it's also very deep. Anyways, thank you for your question, Richard. So any questions here? Any questions?
Okay, so I don't want you to get off yet. Would you speak about devotion?
Devotion is love expressed towards something. Of course, the highest form of devotion is love of truth, love that is expressed and dedicated towards truth, say towards God, towards the self, towards consciousness, towards the revelation. And the purer the object of devotion, the purer the devotion. And the object of devotion is pure as it represents the qualities of consciousness, not the download. So devotion to the formless self, devotion to consciousness, devotion to truth, devotion to reality, devotion to what am I, the contemplation of the self, is the higher form of the devotion, is the purer devotion, as opposed to being devoted to your family, devoted to your country, devoted to your priest, devoted to your religion, devoted to your job, etc., which are lower forms of devotion. But all of them, they express love, which is directed in along different objectives. Now, there are some objects of devotion that are not the purer objects of devotion, but they are a reflection. They're inspired by God. They're inspired by the ultimate, by the absolute. So sometimes people are devoted to some creative thinking, or devoted to the creative art, composing music or painting or poetry or choreographies that come through them. And as it's coming through them, it's turning them on, it's lighting them up. So this sort of devotion to a certain aspect of the self doesn't go through the me. It just goes through the instrument, the body-mind instrument, but it doesn't go through the belief structure, the identification structure. So an artist, for example, a painter would be painting, wouldn't be looking to become famous or wealthy, or, I mean, of course, people have to live, they would sell some of their paintings to make a living, but their passion is not serving the personal self. It's just serving the creator. It's serving the art itself. Like the mad scientists. Hopefully they're not too mad to create hurtful creations. I think that the important thing to sort of distinguish in devotion is whether it's referring to a personal self with a personal interest, but it's referring to a higher truth. Many of us, if not all of us, have some devotion. We're devoted to something, whether it's our family or our job or our children or our political party. I don't know, whatever. But it hasn't looked at the globality. It hasn't taken into account. It's narrow in the personal sense, and it's just serving itself or its small tribe. You go to museums and you see these paintings that were done hundreds of years ago, and they're still serving everybody. They take you to that place of beauty and love and sense of awe. So in terms of the Dharma, when you hear the Dharma and it appeals to you, it awakens your interest into the truth, touches something within you. Via grace, you will find that you keep coming back to it. And it grows onto you as love, the contemplation of truth. It grows into that. So it's a spark of light that comes from the universe to you, inviting you in a way. And somehow, when you recognize the invitation and accept the invitation, it's a very beautiful thing, very precious. And sort of takes you to the end of your journey as a personal self, and the beginning of the self shining. It's a good thing. It's in a way what we aspire for, all of us. I'm not just talking about personal self, but we aspire for love and beauty and peace and, happy dream. Shangri-La. But it doesn't come from the world, body, mind. It comes from the self, from knowing yourself. Then the light can shine onto the world, body, mind. And you are devoted without being anyone. You are devotion itself, you'd say. Devotion itself. Maybe first you are devoted and then you become devotion. You go from a devotee to a devoted by devotion. Devotion devoted you. Well, and I should also say something about devotion to a guru, or devotion to a teacher, devotion to a form, you see. Maybe just a few minutes about to say a couple of things about it. That in its purest sense, a devotion is devotion to truth, devotion to love, peace, happiness, beauty, freedom, joy. The teacher can represent that for you and be some sort of a channel, maybe, for you to be devoted to find your path to the true devotion, which is devotion to the self. So there are teachings and teachers that point you to the self, not to truth. Speak to that, of that, and about that, so that your love for truth starts to grow in your own recognition, in your own life. There would be some shifts and changes that start to occur in your life, and it deepens your roots into your love for the Dharma, for the truth. And the form of the teacher is still there, in a way, but it's not the priority. It is what's coming through. And then the teacher becomes less and less important as you become more and more self-knowing. And of course, the teacher remains your friend and somebody you love, but the relationship sort of changes. Now, there are other forms of devotion where you're devoted to the form of the guru. I think that's more in the Indian tradition. Maybe also here in the States or in the West. I don't know so much about it, but where you're devoted to the form of the guru, so you're devoted to the guru. And the emphasis is on being devoted to the guru. That your path to the freedom in that teaching, that school of teaching, is that come to the freedom via your devotion to the guru. And that's not a path that let's say it's not the final path, because there is still a form that is directed. There is a pointing towards the form. It's not pointing, the teaching is not pointing towards the form, as it's towards the form that represents, I'm going to say supposedly in parentheses, that represents the formless. But in fact, everything represents the formless self, you see. The flight of a bird, the raindrops, the stream, the sound of a brook. It's all represents the formless. there are so many different paths. Some people's path takes them towards the devotion to the guru, to the form of the guru. They are part of this tradition that serves to slowly maybe tenderize their heart and eventually awakens in them an interest in their own awakening and not just in the devotion to the guru. Just sometimes in devotion to the guru, they're promising you, or they're speaking of awakening in some future lifetime. You have to sort of go through the devotional process. And obviously it has its place in the spiritual field, since there are so many people who are living that path. But some teachers are speaking about awakening now. And they're speaking about the transparency of being. That is the reality of our experience, and pointing directly to that. So there's just a few words about devotion, how it's used sometimes in the spiritual field. Yes, hello Laurie. You're right, this is not a question. It's just that every time you laugh, I cannot help but laugh out loud. I'm glad. It's good to laugh. Tara and I, we laugh a lot. So any questions? Very lovely to be with you all. And thank you for your company. So what today's Thursday, so we'll see each other Sunday. Maybe satsang over our house here, and we'll have it also online simultaneously. Namaste, everyone. Oh, hello, Lee. Good to see you. Esther, Gabby.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you, Magdi.
Yes, yes. And Maria, we'll see you soon. Yes.
Thank you, Magdi.
Maria and Isha and Zoe. Okay. Namaste. Namaste. And Laurie as well.